Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And so you're doing well today?
I am, and it is a beautiful day indeed.
It is a beautiful day. We're not going to have any rain, I don't think, today, and the humidity is pretty low. So everything is good. Now, Dogwood Alliance, an interesting organization that you're part of, and you are the Georgia state coordinator for the organization. Is that right?
Yeah, and it's the first time that they have had anybody outside of their home state of North Carolina.
Ah, okay. So it is North Carolina based.
Yes.
And where in North Carolina?
Asheville.
Okay, I don't know there.
Asheville, North Carolina.
Asheville, North Carolina. I don't know where is that.
There's a lot of Savannah escapees to
really?
Asheville, yeah.
Okay, interesting.
A nice town, a lot of art, culture, restaurants. The Biltmore is just outside of there. And tons
So it's right by Asheville?
Asheville, yeah.
Well, that's interesting. I used to live in Asheville. I still don't know about Asheville. Okay. Somehow that just totally escaped me, but okay.
And, the beautiful forest there.
Oh, absolutely.
The Blue Ridge.
Yeah.
And so they started a number of years ago. Their first campaign was trying to get the big paper companies to start sourcing from sustainable forestry.
Probably the one in Candler.
I don't know locations on them, but I do know they get international paper.
I know the one. I cannot remember the name of the actual paper company, but at any rate. All right. Now, let me just mention, too, that you are, in fact, sort of the one who gave birth to the whole idea of WRUU, right?
Yep, that's true.
What a wonderful, good idea that was.
It is. It's just very exciting that here we are.
And here we are. Now we'll get back to that. I do want to come back around to that for sure, and we'll talk about that. But we'll start off talking about the Dogwood Alliance. This is a great organization. Does a lot of good work. Obviously, concerned with conservation and environmental issues. The website
is dogwoodalliance.org.
Okay, dogwoodalliance.org. And, okay, so tell us just a little bit in general about the organization, if you would.
Well, I think as I was mentioning, it started in the 90s with a campaign to get the large paper companies to start sourcing from sustainable forestry. And by 1996, they had finally managed to get 4 of the 5 largest international paper companies to do exactly that. With a targeted campaign that reached out to some of the major corporations using paper products to apply pressure to the paper companies to move into sustainable practices.
Okay.
After that, our campaign that we're in the process of wrapping up now is called, it's actually still ongoing. It's Our Forests Aren't Fuel. And this campaign was really targeting the European Union. European Union, as part of their clean energy plan, incorporated subsidies to the biomass industry for wood pellet production. And the interesting piece, of course, was that they would subsidize that production as long as the trees didn't come from Europe.
Right.
So
how clever of them.
Yes. And so between being the pellets are being used in Europe for energy production, and they're being sourced in the southeast U.S. because we're closer than going down to the Amazon or South America in terms of transporting them back across and the infrastructure and stuff. So the campaign in Europe has been moving along, and it's been pretty successful in terms of getting the European Union and their 2020 plan is cutting the subsidies.
Okay. All right, excellent. All right, and that's an interesting thing. Okay, that's two of the initiatives, two of the things that you guys are involved with, and
we're getting ready to launch another one.
Okay, well let's before we get to another one, let's fill out a little bit on these two that we've talked about. The first one that you just now mentioned, Vicki Weeks, Georgia State Coordinator for Dogwood Alliance, yes, is the thing with the Europeans using our trees to create wood pellets. So it's interesting. They're giving incentives, but for producers of these wood pellets and for the lumber for the wood pellets outside of Europe. So they don't want to lose their own trees.
Exactly.
But then they are using they're still creating some, I guess, environmental issues in a way, depending on how they're using those wood pellets by burning them anyway in the first place.
Well, plus, look at the shipping carbon footprint of. First of all, they're clear cutting forests, and a lot in the industry will try to have you believe that they're doing sustainable forestry. And Dogwood's not opposed to forestry in general. It's, there are, for example, in Maine, there's 5th generation forests, and you don't get a family business staying in business for 5 generations without it being sustainable.
Yeah.
Up in Maine, however, they can only take 1 out of every 5 trees, and they have to replant 1 for every 2. What's happening as they've targeted the U.S. southern states, and Georgia is one of the main states they targeted,
right,
is they're actually coming in and clear cutting, and they're not replanting. So, the argument for biomass is that, well, the trees grow back. Well, it takes 80 years for them to get back to a place where they were.
Exactly.
And what happens quite often is you're not getting the replanting sometimes goes into development. So you're getting asphalt instead of trees. So it's really problematic. And I was on the Ebenezer Creek a couple months ago, and Karen Graney, who is the president of the local Coastal Sierra Club, also does paddle tours there. Mm-hmm. And she took us past a place where they have clear-cut 200 acres of these cypress trees in the Ebenezer forest. And some of these trees there are 1,000 years old.
God, that's just such a shame.
It's just unbelievable, really, that it's so short-sighted,
It is.
But when it can be done sustainably, to not do it sustainably is, it's just a quick buck.
Exactly. And unfortunately, that's business, that's big corporation. Perspective is short-term. It just is.
That quarterly profit.
These days quarterly. Once upon a time it was kind of a look at sort of maybe an annual profit. We didn't worry about it until at least 1 year. Now it's every single quarter. What have you done, and how much money have you made for us, and the board of directors, and everything. So, all right, I'll get off of my little soapbox on that, but I'll probably get back on it at any moment. But that is the perspective. So that's one thing. Now let's go back and talk about, too, the Wetland Forest Initiative that we mentioned. And that's to essentially conserve, restore, and improve the southern wetland forest. You guys, by the way, have a separate website apparently for that, wetlandforest.org. Mm-hmm. So there's that as well. Now you can also get to it from the Dogwood Alliance
a link
website.
Right there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, too. So, but and here again, and as I understand it, you guys have a lot of partners in that, and we're not going to try and enumerate them and name them all, but y'all have a lot of partner organizations that are involved with you in that, right?
Yes.
And let's just talk again a little bit about the importance of the wetland forest. They're filters for the natural ecosystem. They combat pollution in and of themselves. Talk a little bit about the importance.
Well, and in terms of just an entire ecosystem, species diversification. If you're paying attention to what's happening along those lines, you know that you're seeing tremendous species loss.
Yeah.
They're calling it the sixth extinction, the
Yeah,
sixth mass
yeah.
extinction. And, in order for us to have species diversification, it's, they don't live in apartments.
That's true.
I've never seen, the squirrel apartment is actually a big tree.
A big tree.
And
they live out there in the real world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so they really need these habitats. We also need these habitats because they, as you mentioned before, provide filtration for our water, remove some toxins, but they also provide a great barrier for protecting against natural disasters and flooding.
Right.
And so, keeping these forests standing, the new initiative that I was mentioning before is the canopy campaign, which, traditionally all we're doing is valuing forests on the basis of their value as cut wood. We need to start valuing forests on the basis of things like the how much carbon they are absorbing. And I don't know about you, but oxygen I sort of find is sort of important to me. I like breathing. So
it is nice. Yes, it's good to have oxygen.
Yeah, and those are the guys that bring it to us. So so there's just so many reasons that we need to start looking at the economics of forestry differently.
Yes.
And the Carbon Canopy campaign is trying to have us take a look at, it's not to simply eradicate the destruction of forests, but to, if there's going to be any kind of incentives or subsidies, it should be directed toward making sure that the owners of these properties in this resource are being compensated for keeping these really important resources alive, well, and functioning.
Yes. Okay. Good point. And yeah, you're right. Again, the mentality that we count the value of a forest and of hardwood trees, any trees for that matter, just purely in terms of what they mean on a purely economic basis of how much wood that will make, and that therefore translates into X number of dollars. It's absurd.
How much per board foot of dead wood? In the meantime, there was, the whole carbon issue. Is ongoing and increasingly more problematic, and
is.
We need to be bringing more trees online to help us mitigate that.
Absolutely, because in terms of global warming, forests help stabilize the climate. They pull carbon out of the atmosphere and play an important role in that sense as well.
Yeah, there's a figure that's 12% of global CO2 emissions are due to deforestation.
Oh man!
And one
that's
of the
a
things,
lot.
12%, yeah.
That is a huge.
And
amount.
another piece that people don't realize, you've heard people talk about the problem of deforestation in the Amazon, and they're losing for the Amazon basin at a rate of, the tens of thousands of acres.
Yep.
But basically, the rate of deforestation in the southeast U.S. is 4 times that of the Amazon.
Wow. Say that again, the rate?
The rate of deforestation, clear cutting in the southeastern states is 4 times what's happening in the Amazon.
Oh, my God. That is disturbing, because we all know how much is going on in the Amazon. So,
and drive down. I never really noticed it. You drive from Savannah to Macon on 16. And you drive down, and it used to be like, oh my goodness, look at all these trees. What a beautiful drive. And then I started noticing there was a lot of light behind those trees. And if you look behind what actually, these guys actually have the nerve to call beauty strips.
Oh,
They're
brother.
called in the industry beauty strips, and you look
course
behind
they
them, and behind the beauty strip is the ugly reality of the clear cut.
Oh, my God.
And once I started working with Dogwood, I really started seeing that. I was like, oh, wow. It changed my whole perspective on the trip to Macon.
Good Lord. Okay. All right. Now, you of course live here, right?
Savannah? Mm-hmm.
In Savannah, and you this organization North Carolina based, but of course you again are the Georgia State coordinator. So, in just a general sort of a sense, what does that mean for you? What kinds of things are you involved in?
Well, right now we're beginning to build a statewide coalition of environmental groups. I had a meeting in Atlanta where we brought in about 15 different environmental groups who have either regional, national, or statewide organizations to come together and strategize about how can we work together more effectively to be mutually supportive organizations.
Yeah, that's good.
Around and also how do our pieces interlock? You know, how does protection of rivers and streams interface with protection of forests? How does protection of species and wildlife? How do hunting interests? How do fishing interests? How do all of these pieces are so interdependent, and our goal is to bring together people so that we're being able to understand this environmental nonprofit sector and how it interfaces with tourism, recreation, and these larger pieces, so that we can create a more protective and productive environment for all of us.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. That's good, because I sometimes wonder, and I wonder this as a layman, if you will. I mean, I'm not in any, although I support various environmental organizations and efforts. I'm not on the board of any. I'm not in a management capacity with any or anything like that. So I'm seeing it from the outside. But I do sometimes think, that maybe, because there are a lot of environmental organizations out there, a lot, and that's great. That's a good thing. But I have found myself wondering sometimes if that they're all sort of shooting their own shots, so to speak, and they're all so clearly, or many of them are so clearly engaged in, at least in a little bit broader sense, the same efforts. And it does seem like maybe sometimes they're not as coordinated to present a sort of a bigger front sort of together.
Yeah, and it's, if you're familiar with nonprofit organizations in general, they are quite often under-resourced, understaffed.
Yeah, yep.
And when you look at environmental organizations, each issue has such depth and breadth.
Yeah,
if you're looking at trying to protect Georgia rivers, well, that's a big project. There's a lot of rivers. There's what pieces are there. There's the research pieces. There's the community outreach. There's the legislative
Riverkeeper,
access.
Savannah Riverkeeper, and other organizations.
Right, and things to be keeping on top of. So the environment itself is it's everything, right? So that there's so much in each subsector to pay attention to.
That's true.
It really takes a concerted effort to bring people together to think about how we might best work together. We're actually Oceana, who I've done work for before, is organizing a meeting this week, tomorrow, to look at how we can bring together coastal environmental organizations, to develop a position and cohesive action plan for stopping the next offshore drilling assaults.
Yeah. Like that's, Good Lord.
So it's every time you turn around, it's another battlefront, right?
I mean, good God. Have we learned nothing?
Not that there's any global warming or anything.
No, and not that there's going to be any big oil spills. I mean,
Right.
Lord knows that's not going to happen.
Or sea level rise.
Oh, good God, please. Well, that's good. That's good because is there, in fact, a sort of a singular, whether it be, well, there is sort of a Coastal Georgia, I guess, organization.
That just sort of came together fairly recently.
Yeah.
And
Because there certainly could be a geographic umbrellas, if you will.
right.
And so we're talking about coastal Georgia, or we could even talk about coastal Georgia and South Carolina, maybe, or maybe even North Carolina, just whatever. But
Right, and then, well, you see, you'll have some organizations that have either statewide outreach, or they have regional,
yeah.
or they have national, or international.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really important to start talking at the leadership level about bringing ourselves together in coalition.
Yeah, good. Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I think we even had the Democratic Party of Georgia just formed their first environmental caucus. It's the first time in the history.
Well, in the first place,
party.
I can't believe that they've not done that up until now. That's horrifying that they haven't. That's really good news that they finally have, and Lord knows I'm sure the Republicans don't have one, I wouldn't think.
Not that I know of.
No, I
Although
doubt
there
it.
is the Green Tea Party, which was a tea party that was pressing.
That seems
right.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish that now.
Well, it was my understanding that they were pressing for things like truly renewable resource energy production modalities, because from a market-based perspective, they don't this. They're opposed to the subsidies, right? And so what they want is to be looking at things that are able to do clean renewable energy without having to put in a bunch of tax subsidies, which
Well, okay, insofar as that goes, that's fine, I suppose. But I mean, good luck with that in the first place. If you're going to be dealing with corporate entities that are involved in manufacturing products and producing products that have environmental impacts, if you're expecting them to do the right thing by themselves.
Well, what's funny is
Please.
It's like, it reminds me of the tobacco industry, right? If the tobacco industry hadn't spent at least tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions of dollars on mis and disinformation campaigns,
Right.
they probably could have created a cigarette that was cancer-free.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with this, the energy industry. If big oil and coal had started putting some of their resources into R&D and development, they could be the leaders.
Yes, and in solar energy and all of the
wind,
various,
all of it, and they've got the resources to make it happen if they weren't just pocketing
yes,
it
they
all,
do. Of course they do. But my God, I just oh man, I just
But
But
then
we're
it keeps
we're
all
gonna.
of us in the environmental sector, it creates those jobs.
I know. People are talking about the jobs and the money. Well, if we would just go in the right direction, there are jobs and money there.
Yeah,
you
you're
see,
actually
with
seeing,
far less environmental damage.
right, and you're actually seeing far faster job growth and higher paying, better jobs
in that sector.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. If we just
Without
if
the
we would
health
just go that way,
impacts,
but no.
lung disease or
We want to
whatever.
hold on to the bitter end with as much coal as we possibly can.
Right.
I mean, we could still be using whale oil, y'all. I mean, sometimes industries and scientific progress and we evolve and we move away from energy sources, and yes, when that happens, it creates a little bit of disconcerting. We have to make that change, but we did it before, we can do it again.
It's evolution, isn't that another one of those theories?
My goodness. All right. Well, listen, I'll tell you what. We're kind of at halfway point. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a brief break and a brief pause. We're going to come back and do a little musical interlude, not much. We won't be going long. We're going to come back here on Savannah Lexicon. We're going to talk with Vicki some more, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Dogwood Alliance, but also about WRUU. And then I've got to run my mouth, as you all know, at the end of the show and say some various things and make some announcement kinds of things. So hang on. We won't be going long.
This portion of WRUU-LP Savannah Soundings programming is made possible by a grant from Sentient Bean, offering fair trade coffee, vegan and vegetarian food, and breakfast all day. Located at 13 East Park Avenue, across the street from the tennis courts at Forsyth Park. Our menu and special events listings can be found at sentientbean.com.
All right, and you are listening to WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with Global Soul. And this is Wayne, and this is Savannah Lexicon. We do appreciate you listening. If you want to go and check out the Facebook page, there's a Savannah Lexicon Facebook page. We'd love to have you take a look and make any comments whatsoever that might cross your mind. We're speaking here today with Vicki Weeks, Georgia State Coordinator for the Dogwood Alliance. And Vicki, we want to talk about your very important role in the creation of WRUU, but before we break off from the Dogwood Alliance and whatnot, I know that you guys or you're putting together having an event of some kind here in Savannah, right? Before long?
Yeah. There's an environmental networking group. It's called Green Drinks. And it traditionally has been a monthly gathering just to do networking and speaking with Joanne Morton from Massive Events, who are now producing it. I said, why don't we look at making one time a quarter be an information education kind of piece? And they like the idea, and we're sort of going to focus those on one quarter being earth, sea, air, and fire energy.
Okay.
And I'm going to be the first, kick it off with the event on June 13th. It's going to be at the Wormhole, right in Starland. Right. Plenty of parking. And they have, if you haven't been there, they have a great sound system because they put on some fabulous music.
Right.
So they have sound and film capacity, and we'll be doing a little presentation, kicking off our newest campaign, which is Stand for Forests. And that campaign is, again, about valuing the carbon canopy for the value that it provides in the larger ecological sense. And it's going to be an interesting, informative evening with a lot of folks coming out. So hope folks will be able to get down there. I think that'll be like a 6 to 7:30 kind of happening, and then a lot of conversation after that.
Okay.
And maybe even some action opportunities. You can be an Enviro action hero.
There you go. There you go. So there's certainly, as should be obvious, but we should just be explicit about it. Obviously, there are any number of ways that individuals can get involved with Dogwood Alliance projects and activities and all of that sort of thing. And also, I'm sure you guys don't mind taking donations.
Not at all.
Who are so inclined. And there's information about that on the website, and in terms of donations and in terms of volunteering.
And if you want to contact me, you can just Vicki at dogwoodalliance.org. And
Simple
if
enough.
you're interested in getting involved, I would be happy to talk to you.
Okay. Good deal. Good deal. All right, let's switch gears here just a minute and talk about WRUU radio. This was your actual idea, right? Now we should kind of give a little backdrop in that the license holder, the way that these particular kinds of radio stations are set up, which are small, community-minded, very community-minded radio stations as a non-profit, is that it has to have a non-profit sponsor. The sponsor is Unitarian Universalist Church of Savannah.
That's correct.
And you are, is it correct, a member of the church?
Yep.
Okay. And so you came up with this beautiful idea. So just tell us how you came to think of this and come up with this idea.
Well, I actually, the first time I looked at trying to develop a community radio station, it was when I was living down in Key West. And that was now almost 20 years ago. And there was a 15-year hiatus during which there was no spectrum made available by the FCC.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You said 20 years ago they didn't even have this whole...
Right, that was the last time they had opened any spectrum.
Yeah.
And that's when you saw all of the more right-leaning organizations really take over the community airwaves. And I just felt it was really important to provide a little bit of balance, and because you have both the corporate, which is fairly right-leaning, and then you have the, Breitbart and those folks all doing that side of the spectrum. And there was very little, aside from Democracy Now! And a couple of other shows that were presenting any kind of balance to the fair and balanced equation.
Yeah.
That's
a joke coming out of Fox, but anyway,
yeah. So I just decided that what happened was I had heard about Prometheus Radio was coming to town, and I had been involved in the fight to get the FCC to open spectrum.
Okay.
And that actually required a lawsuit that forced them into court, and we finally won the lawsuit.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, and so when that happened, Prometheus came to town and did a little workshop for...
And you're talking about Key West now?
No, this was here in Savannah.
Oh, it was in Savannah.
Yeah,
okay.
We did that. So 15 years ago, they closed the spectrum. Licenses were issued, and it was never able to get it organized there. Then the spectrum was closed for 15 years. They weren't going to open any. We went and did the lawsuit, won the lawsuit. Spectrum gets opened. Prometheus comes to Savannah and is talking about how you actually do this. And here they have some resources to assist anybody who wants to put this together. Okay. And I ran into John Bennett, who is also very deeply involved in the station.
Yeah, has a show on here as well now, yes.
Dare Dukes was there, who is now with Deep Center. And all of us were interested in, getting community radio happening. As it turned out, Dare got engaged. Dare, I think, had some kids and got engaged otherwise, and John decided to come help us. And so I reached out to the UU Church here to see if they would be our nonprofit sponsor. You know, we could have started our own nonprofit, which was another route. But again, it's easier said than done.
Sure.
It's just more work. So
Absolutely.
Since we had an organization that I felt would be pretty much in alignment with what I was hoping this station would become in terms of providing a platform for voices that are not often heard in either commercial or on the rights, and it's worked out.
Yes, it has, and I am so thankful. I'm lucky. I came in very, very late in the game, but I'm happy to have the opportunity to do this show and some other things. And boy, it's just great. It's blossoming so much here recently since we, of course, finally made it on to the actual radio, because at first it was only streaming online, and it still does. By the way, everybody should know it's still streaming online. So. Folks anywhere can listen to it online, and
we sort of started that way pretty intentionally in terms of making sure that people were trained, so that when we wind up on the air, we don't wind up with violations of the FCC regulations,
yes, indeed,
and are off the air before we've had 5 minutes to be on the air.
Yes. Every day I do the show, I'm like, okay, what is it I cannot do? I cannot do. What is it I must do? Because we have to keep straight with that FCC stuff, and
yes,
we are, and we have it drilled into us, the things that we must do and the things we must not do.
I tell you, one of the things that has been so gratifying, that I've found really gratifying, the musical content is better than I really had ever hoped. I mean,
it's
sometimes
great,
it is just stunningly good.
Because it's all over the place, for one thing. I'm sure, it's just good in and of itself, but just the fact that it is so diverse.
And it's not diverse necessarily. It's within some shows, but then there's some shows that will really have more of a focus on world or blues or whatever. And then you get that kind of depth that you don't get anywhere else.
So you get diversity in the overall offerings. There's so many different music shows and genres that are done here, but with particular shows, as you say, that focus on a particular genre, a particular kind of music, and then
it's all balanced with some tremendous community content. There's your show and Lana's show and Emergent Savannah. I mean, so many of them. Katie Pincur, I think, now has the health ethics, and it just keeps growing. I was talking
the
to
race relation show.
I was talking to somebody the other day, an attorney, about possibly doing public information about legal issues, that could be a call-in, or somebody else is looking at putting together a teen scene show. So there's it's just constantly evolving and growing, and it's just fabulous, really. I'm so delighted by everybody's work. It's been such a project of love by so many people this is 5 years now that we've been working on it.
That's the thing, and thank you and John and all the people who've been here for a long time. As I say, I'm coming in late, but you guys who've been at this for years are to be applauded for bringing this radio station to life.
Perseverance are us.
Well, absolutely. I mean, to think of the years, 5 years you're talking about there. God, that's some kind of dedication.
I didn't have any gray hairs when we started.
Well, there you go. You have a few now. I don't want to, just a few. But that's really great. And this radio station, again, I'm not patting myself on the back, but this radio station is just a real treasure for Savannah. It really is. There's nobody else that's doing what WRUU is doing. There's nobody else who is the real community kind of dedication that we have, the focus that we have on the community, and the perspective that is often very different from, what
It was really designed to be a gift to community.
Well, it is. And
So-
I hope the community recognizes it and appreciates it.
Well, and the folks who early on were came in as businesses that were sponsors supporting events,
Underwriters.
and now they're
and-
underwriters
and,
that are. I mean, they're so
help us
crucial.
out, yeah.
Now that we're actually up and running, we will be doing our outreach with our underwriting program, so people can be getting recognition for the support of the station. But,
Good.
people like the Sentient Bean and Brighter Day and Foxy Loxy and all the usual suspects of community support. Hopefully, we'll be hearing all of them being part of our underwriting program here.
Yeah, absolutely, and we acknowledge them every broadcast, or at least one on any particular broadcast. Because you've got to have that kind of thing too. You got to have that kind of support. And those of you who are listening, you're probably well aware of things, but nevertheless, if you haven't checked the website www.wruu.org, check it out, because there is so much new just in the past several weeks. I mean, it's been going along and growing, since the beginning, and it really hit a growth spurt when we first went on the radio, and it is continuing. And in the past few weeks, we have gotten a number of new shows, hosted shows, just some really good stuff on the radio now.
And, there's still room for more. So
Absolutely.
Any of you listeners out there that would like to have a program, if you've got an idea that you'd like to bring forward, again, right on the website, go to the program tab.
Yeah.
There's a drop-down, and you could submit your idea. Program team will take a look at it.
Yep.
We also have room for volunteers on all of our teams. We've got program, fundraising, media, governance,
working
and
the
infrastructure.
soundboard.
Yeah. So there's
for me.
there's plenty of room for community,
Or
more
anybody
community to get right on in there.
Absolutely. There's all sorts of volunteer opportunities here at WRUU. And, good stuff. And I'll just, we have a new show, actually, too, that's syndicated that now starts at 9. And it's good, and it leads up to Amy Goodman at 10 o'clock. So following my show, you have a couple of good hours of syndicated shows that are coming on with the, shall we say, proper perspective. And then we have, of course, good music all day. And programming, of course, 24 hours a day. Music and some hosted shows as well. So it is indeed, I think, safely to say, a treasure for Savannah. And we hope you keep listening. Okay. Vicki, one last word before we kind of break off for the very last segment. I guess back for a moment to Dogwood Alliance. Anything you want to wrap up with here on that? Again, folks can look at that online, the dogwoodalliance.org. A number of new initiatives, an event coming up.
No, don't forget to visit our Facebook page, which is Art Forests Aren't Fuel Savannah. A little tricky in the naming of that one.
Our forests aren't, and is that with the apostrophe actually, literally? How would it have? Would it have an apostrophe?
Boy, now you have to ask me the tough question.
Okay, well anyway, you'll find it if you look for it. Our forests aren't fuel.
Savannah.
Savannah.
No, that's just on Facebook. That's
on
our Facebook page.
Right. Our forests aren't fuel Savannah. Okay, on Facebook.
And you'll get on there a lot of other action pieces, information about things that are happening, other campaigns, and information on the whole forest issues.
Okay.
As well as we're also bringing in more information on other environmental issues along the lines of trying to support that mutually supportive environmental coalition idea.
Okay. Excellent.
So be sure to come out, join us at green drinks at the Wormhole on the June 13th.
Okay.
6 to 7:30. I think it's 5:30 to 7:30 actually.
Okay.
And I'll have more information on the new campaign, and perhaps some interesting news to report on a outreach that we've been doing with our certain legislative bodies.
Oh, a teaser. I like that. That's even more encouragement to show up to that event at the Wormhole. Okay, Vicki, thank you so much. Now I'm going to...
thank you, Wayne.
Yeah. I appreciate you coming in so much. We're going to go again to a quick musical interlude, and then I'm going to come back and say a few things myself, so hang in there, and we will be right back. Okay, I'm back. And this is Savannah Lexicon. I appreciate you listening to us here this fine Tuesday after Memorial Day in Savannah, Georgia. Okay, so I just wanted to take a little time before completely closing out here and to make some comments and some various kinds of things like that, as I usually do, to let you know. And to let you know that Thursday's guest, for instance, I should go ahead and tell you that Thursday's guest is Simona Perry, who is an ethnographer, really, I suppose is a proper term to use for her, among other things. And she is doing a documentary project, an oral history project, really, for Ogeechee Riverkeeper, the organization based here in Atlanta. Atlanta, my God. Excuse me, Savannah, here in Savannah. And that's going to be very interesting. They're putting together, as I say, an oral history from folks who have had a long-standing and, shall we say, intimate connection to the Ogeechee River and what it has meant to them in their lives. In fact, she's going to bring someone with her who is one of the persons who is going to be in the documentary project, in the oral history. So that's good. That's Simona Perry, Thursday with the Ogeechee River Keeper documentary project. And then a week from today on this, it's going to be June, the week from today and the 6th, it's going to be June, actually, the day after tomorrow, my next show, won't it? That'll be the very first day of June for the Ogeechee Riverkeeper. But next Tuesday on the 6th, my guest will be the First City Networks, I know he's on the board. I'm not sure what his exact position or title is, but Michael Plosky, and the executive director with Savannah Pride. We're going to be talking about the new LGBT community center that is soon going to be open. And we're going to be talking about the fact that, June is LGBT month. So we're going to recognize that fact and talk with them about issues of importance to them and to that community. We got that coming up. And let's see, another thing I wanted to do is just take note. Well, first off, I wanted to mention that Clinton Edminster, who always has something going on, has actually tonight at 6 p.m. at Bull Street Labs, second floor, 2222 Bull Street, a meeting of the Self-Driving Vehicle Coalition of Coastal Georgia. You heard that right. The Self-Driving Vehicle Coalition of Coastal Georgia. So Clinton, as usual, is involved in all sorts of things that are very forward-looking. And this is going to be yet another one. That's at 6 o'clock tonight. They're having that meeting. So that is going to be interesting. Also, I just wanted to go, and last week we had the great Connect Savannah Best of Savannah issue, and I just wanted to breeze through this some to just make some comments. And I was delighted to note that a number of my guests and or organizations, guests and organizations who have been on my show were in here and noted. So that's great. And then there have been some that were noted here that I want to get on the show. So one is Andrea Domansky. She was elected or voted best local author with the best new local book. Andrea or Andrea, whichever you may pronounce it, I want to get you on the show. So if you happen to be listening, you recognize that, and I will be in touch soon. Also, best cultural event, best festival that's not St. Patrick's Day, Savannah Music Festival. I am a huge fan of Savannah Music Festival, and we have had a representative of the organization here on the show. Great. I mean, I just can't imagine a festival of that caliber, that breadth, that quality in a city the size of Savannah. Only in Savannah must be the only city of this size that would have such a thing. Best local comedian / comedy team, Odd Lot Improv. I had the pleasure of having them on the show just a couple of weeks ago. Best local concert was the Avett Brothers at Savannah Music Festival. Again, Savannah Music Festival. I was there at that show, and it was some kind of good. Best local jazz band and artist, Velvet Caravan. And I had the group on the show actually playing right here in the studio a ways back. Exceptional music. And Ricardo Ochoa is now, he's got a show here on WRUU, so look that up. Best Progressive, well, I just mentioned him. Clinton Edminster is the best progressive, voted best progressive. So that makes sense. He's certainly doing a lot out there in Starland. Best New City Initiative is Summer 500, which is the internship program. And Alderwoman at Large and Mayor Pro Tem Carol was here just recently talking about that here on the show. So a lot of good things. Now, best local radio station, best talk radio station, somehow WRUU and somehow Wayne Waters and Savannah Lexicon did not get the vote on that. I don't know how that happened, but we should say that GPB Savannah WSVH FM 91.1 got that distinction, and it was well deserved. They are an excellent radio show, and Georgia Public Broadcasting has the television connection as well. But WSVH FM 91.1, best local radio station, best talk radio station. Excellent. If you're not listening to us at any given time, you should be listening to them, I think. That's my own personal opinion. And while I'm thinking about it, let me say that the viewpoints expressed in the preceding program, Savannah Lexicon, were not necessarily those of WRUU, its license holder, or its staff, and we are getting ready to head out the door. So I want to thank you for listening to Savannah Lexicon, and this is WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community